TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donation. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening, and welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin, broadcast from Jerusalem. US President Donald Trump reinforces his support for the Damascus regime of interim-President Ahmad, a-Sharaa. Israel and Greece voiced determination to bring their strategic cooperation to new heights. The European Union announces new sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States no longer requires the services of the predominantly Kurdish SDF or Syrian Democratic Forces since the new Damascus regime of interim-President Ahmad, a-Sharaa, with support from Turkey, says it intends to assume the fight against remnants of the Islamic State throughout Syria. And when a pro-Damascus journalist posed an evident so-called leading question to President Donald Trump on the latest Damascus-backed onslaught against the former American allies, President Trump insisted it was about preventing ISIS fighters from fleeing a number of prisons that until yesterday were under heavy SDF control.
With your support to the Syrian government, most probably you avoided another civil war and a bloodshed in Syria, especially after the fall of the regime.
I did a good job.
And, the Syrian government the last 2 weeks had to use some force to implement its force on specific areas. And
well,
with
to keep the prisoners, the terrorist prisoners, which are some of the worst in the world, at bay. So they were able to keep that. He's working very hard. The president of Syria is working very, very hard. Strong guy, tough guy, pretty rough resume. But you're not going to put a choir boy in there and, get the job done. I spoke with him yesterday because we were talking about the prisons and, what was going on. We have some of the worst terrorists in the world in those prisons, and he's watching them.
The Kurdish journalist subsequently posed a counter-question highlighting the loyalty Kurds maintained towards the United States over the course of more than a decade, to which President Trump responded, quote, "They were doing it for themselves, more so than they were doing it for us."
Well, I like the Kurds, but just so you understand, the Kurds were paid tremendous amounts of money, were given oil and other things, so they were doing it for themselves, more so than they were doing it for us. But we got along with the Kurds, and we are trying to protect the Kurds.
It is important to point out that U.S. Ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barrack, who also serves as President Trump's envoy for Syria, highlighted in a post on X, quote, "Historically, the U.S. military presence in northeastern Syria was justified primarily as a counter-ISIS partnership. The Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, led by Kurds, proved the most effective ground partner in defeating ISIS's territorial caliphate by 2019, detaining thousands of ISIS fighters and family members in prisons and camps like Al-Hol and Al-Shaddadi. At that time, there was no functioning central Syrian state to partner with. However, today, the situation has fundamentally changed. Syria now has an acknowledged central government that has joined the global coalition to defeat ISIS as its 90th member in late 2025, signaling a westward pivot and cooperation with the U.S. on counterterrorism. This shift, the rationale for the US-SDF partnership, the original purpose of the SDF as the primary anti-ISIS force on the ground, has largely expired, as Damascus is now both willing and positioned to take over security responsibilities, including control of ISIS detention facilities and camps. Ambassador Barrack further stressed that the greatest opportunity for the Kurds in Syria right now lies in the post-Assad transition under the new government led by President Ahmad, a-Sharaa. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, right after concluding his press conference, held a phone conversation with Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, during the course of which they spoke about Syria, among other topics.
I have a very I have a very important call with President Erdogan, who I like a lot.
It is worth noting that irrespective of Israel's objections, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan on the sidelines of a Turkey-Uzbekistan joint strategic planning group revealed that President Donald Trump had invited President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to join the Board of Peace for the Gaza Strip.
We see that invitations have been sent to many countries. We received one as well. Our President Tayyip Erdogan is being invited as a founding member of the Board of Peace on behalf of Turkey. As you know, the Board of Peace is established at the level of heads of state and government. It has a founding charter and an agreement. Our investigations regarding this are ongoing. Our president will probably make his decisions on this matter very soon.
It is important to point out long-standing anti-Israel rhetoric by Turkish leaders has recently driven Israel into a defensive strategic alliance with Greece and Cyprus. This alliance has gained momentum in recent weeks, with Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz, who met with his counterpart in Athens yesterday, voicing determination to bring the strategic cooperation to new heights.
As an integral part of this partnership, we share relevant information, promote security technological cooperation, conduct joint exercises and training, and strengthen operational collaboration. All of these serve as a significant force multiplier for the security systems both in Israel and in Greece. We are determined to bring this strategic cooperation to new heights. We can do whatever is necessary to achieve this goal. At the same time, we are equally determined regarding another critical issue, not to allow actors who seek to undermine regional stability to gain a foothold through terror, aggression, or military proxies in Syria, in Gaza, in the Aegean Sea, and in any other arena to realize their dangerous ambitions.
Meanwhile, in Prague, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar was hosted by his Czech counterpart, Petr Mesinka, during the course of which the latter revealed that in contrast to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, President Donald Trump has not yet officially invited the leader of America's NATO ally, the Czech Republic.
Tomu, jak se staví, že členem této rady by mohlo být i Rusko.
How is it viewed that Russia could also be a member of this council? I can only say that we will not comment much on this yet, because we have not yet officially been invited, so we do not have the opportunity to familiarize ourselves in detail with the text of the charter, etc. If this were to change in the coming days or hours, we would certainly give our position on this, but for now, there is nothing to comment on.
K tomu určitě nějaké stanovisko dáme, ale zatím není co komentovat.
Jerusalem's top diplomat, for his part, acknowledged that President Trump had invited Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and in response to a question, he also acknowledged the invitation extended to President Vladimir Putin.
I believe that President Trump is the one that's building this board of peace. He invited Israel, Prime Minister of Israel, to be a part of it. And he also invited President Putin, Russia, to be a member there. We support the Trump plan in Gaza. In order for it to be implemented, Hamas must be disarmed and Gaza must be demilitarized. This is necessary for both Israel's security and a better future for Gaza. It is critical to dismantle the terror states in the Middle East, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. Without doing so, there will be no regional stability.
Minister Saab continued by addressing the murderous Ayatollah regime of Iran, which continues to brutally persecute Iranian citizens protesting for freedom.
The Iranian regime poses a huge threat to regional and global stability. The world's most dangerous and extreme regime, which funds and cultivates a network of terror organizations and states, wants to get its hands on the world's most dangerous weapon, nuclear weapon. This will pose a grave threat not only to Israel and the Middle East, but also to Europe. The Czech Republic supports the designation of the IRGC as a terrorist organization in the European Union. I call on the European Union, rise to the moment, answer the call of the Iranian people, designate the Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organization.
Meanwhile, in Brussels, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas announced that the European Union decided to slap Iran with additional sanctions.
We are working on new sanctions response on Iran's authorities' brutal repression of protesters and to support the Iranian people's legitimate demands. We are actively examining what further measures can be taken.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you to keep the Iranian people in your prayers, as well as pray for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.